Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Jade Dynasty based on novel. So let's start. The great shaman, after being silent for a while, said, "Yes." Ghost Lee turned silent. The great shaman continued on, "This sacred weapon involves the survival of the southern border commoners. I only hope you can give a hand to our people." Ghost Lee's lips twitched, said, "The 5 tribes of southern border have great number of people. Why must you seek help from an outsider?" The great shaman shook his head, his voice desolated, said, "Ever since the 5 tribes splitted up, the shaman power weakened as the days went by. To find a decent talent now to shoulder this responsibility is already impossible. You beseeched me to help in your friend's soul returning matter. I agree, just that the circumstances that you have described is not the same as what had happened at southern border. I do not have confidence, but I will do my best. Tomorrow morning I will go with you all to Central Plains." Ghost Lee and Xiao Bai were stunned. They did not expect the great shaman to be so anxious. Ghost Lee, for Bai Yao, did not even fear death, what's more retrieving the so-called legendary sacred weapon. Just that although he was elated, but he could tell that the great shaman was still heavily injured and said, "Senior, your fight last night, don't you want to rest for a few more days?" The great shaman with a soft sigh, said, "My days are numbered. Before that, I will give it all for you. I only hope you will, for this dying old man, for the countless commoners of the southern border, lend a hand." Ghost Lee was silent. Actually, how could he not see that the great shaman's body was weak, but he did not expect that it had reached until this stage. Xiao Bai beside him suddenly said, "Great shaman, you have just said, only if the 5 sacred weapons return to the ancient cave, that evil beast could then be revived, right?" The great shaman nodded and said, "That's right." Xiao Bai said, "Since it is so, even if the Miao tribe lost 1 sacred weapon, there are still other 4. You don't have to be so anxious." 2, it was 2? The great shaman suddenly cut in. After speaking, a violent fit of coughing again racked him. Xiao Bai, stunned and said, "What?" The great shaman waited until his cough finally subsided, sighed, and said, "On my tribe's sacred weapon Black Staff, it is set with another sacred weapon, Jade Bone, which was taken from Li tribe 200 years ago by our tribe." Xiao Bai, exclaimed, her expression peculiar, and did not speak any more. The great shaman, after a period of silence, said, "Actually, 200 years ago, we have already sensed that something was not right. We received news surreptitiously that Shuang, Tu, and Jiaoshan, the 3 tribes' sacred weapons, within these few hundred years were actually mysteriously and bizarrely lost. At that time only Li and our Miao tribe still have the weapons. At that time, within the 5 tribes, only the shaman skills of our Miao altar still possess some power, and so we took the sacred weapon, Jade Bone, from Li tribe and safeguarded it within our altar, and hoped for the best. Unexpectedly in the end, still." Ghost Lee and Xiao Bai did not speak. Taking others' sacred weapon, it was after all not very honorable. The great shaman also knew this and did not wish to elaborate further. He turned and spoke to Ghost Lee. "Therefore, with the current situation, it is actually really very urgent. All of the 5 tribes' sacred weapons have disappeared, and it might be done by that evil beast. And last night that Li tribe person, the powers he was using was what the fiend beast had, black fire evil skill. I am really very worried." Before he could finish, he had already started coughing, breaking his voice. Ghost Lee breathed deeply, slowly said, "I promised you." The great shaman was overjoyed, nodded his head in succession, said, "Many, many thanks." Xiao Bai suddenly said, "Great shaman, what was the name of that shaman lady? I really admired her." The great shaman's face changed. He sighed, slowly straightened his body. A revered expression also surfaced on his face, slowly said, "That lady's name was called Ling Long." The duskiness without seeing daylight, the lofty black trees entangled with each other, human and beast bones remnants seen everywhere in the forest, there was even eerie flickering phosphorescent lights from the white bones. All of these was what Jinpinga was looking at. Ever since she followed the evil shaman and entered into the mysterious eerie 10,000s great mountains forests world, after trudging across 2 dangerously steep mountain ranges, she came to a huge expanse of black forest, and presented before her was this scene. This was her 3rd day in the black forest. The boundless darkness before her, it was unmoving as if it had froze. Anxiety appeared on Jinpinga's lovely face. She walked forward 1 step and a light sound was heard from her feet below. She looked down, a ghastly white human skull rolled to her side on the ground. How long exactly has this person been dead here? Jinpinga sighed, slightly shifted with her foot and swept the skull to the side. Even though she was already mentally prepared before entering the 10,000s great mountains, but Jinpinga did not expect that it would be this otherworldly and perilous in here. Not to mention the toxic miasma that would be fatal if not careful. On her journey in, she met quite a number of unheard strange beasts. To describe a strange beast would also seem inappropriate. These things seemed most likely were transformed over from some species of ferocious beasts, like tiger and leopard fusion, pig and bear etc., but these did not seem to be as intelligent as the previously encountered human fish tribe. However, although these abnormal animals were savage, they were only so to ordinary people. To Jinpinga, who hailed from evil sect Hehuan sect, they were still easy to deal with, and therefore she still found her journey easy, just that the omnipresent miasma made her on tenterhooks every day, not letting her guard down even for a minute. And the evil shaman that she was stalking from afar seemed not to be expecting someone would follow him into the 10,000 great mountains, so that was why until now, Jinpinga did not lose him, but just that ferocious dragon beside the evil shaman really gave Jinpinga a headache. No matter how she concealed herself, whenever she went near the evil shaman, that rapier-like sense dragon would always be alerted. After a few times, Jinpinga did not dare to go near the evil shaman again. And now, Jinpinga using Hehuan sect handed down pursuing skill, following the evil shaman from afar, and after they entered the Black Forest, in those 3 days the evil shaman never once rest, using the same speed traversing the forest. Jinpinga was highly skilled, and 3 days without rest to her was still sustainable, but regardless she would still feel some tiredness, and that evil shaman ahead of her seemed not to be a human, traveling ahead using the same speed. The phosphorescent lights glimmering in the Black Forest, like a feeble light in the darkness, undecided between staying alive or dying out, again like a silent otherworldly eye watching this intruder. Suddenly, a loud cry in the darkness, a pig-head bare-body strange beast suddenly dashed out from the side, pounced towards Jinpinga. Jinpinga frowned, her body flew up, slashed and waved her hand while in the air, a brilliant purple light flashed twice in the darkness. Purple light saw the beast charged past the place where Jinpinga was just standing and overshot it a few good steps. Suddenly it made a strange long howl, its entire body emitted a light muffled sound at the same time, pong, a sound. Blood splattered everywhere. This strange beast's body split into half from the middle, fell onto the ground and twitched a few times and then ceased moving. The blood that flowed out, under the faint phosphorescent lights of the forest, slowly seeped into the ground, turning into a dark color. Before Jinpinga could land, in the darkness ahead, countless of wild beasts' roars suddenly erupted, instantly breaking the tranquility, like hundreds of beasts crying out to the sky, rippling in the darkness. The next moment, behind those glimmering phosphorescent lights, pairs of various sizes ferocious eyes emerged, glinting in the darkness. Jinpinga inhaled deeply, her face turned pale a few degrees. Following a long howl, like a gigantic river gushing down abruptly, the galloping footstep sounds broke the stillness, slowly lengthening, surrounding Jinpinga in the center roar. In that instant, innumerable strange beasts dashed out from the darkness, pounced towards that solitary figure. Jinpinga's figure weaved among the avalanche of beasts. At the same time the purple light glimmered in her hand. Each time she brandished, there would be animals that cried out and died. Just that the number of beasts was really too many. In a short while they packed tightly into the large swathe of land. Jinpinga almost had no place to land until the end. She was already leaping and moving using the backs of the animals. In a short time, the number of beasts killed by Jinpinga's purple light sword had already exceeded 20, but Jinpinga's legs and feet had also been slashed with several wounds. And in the darkness ahead, there seemed to be still endless number of beasts charging out, really made one perplexed as to where exactly did all these beasts come from in this black forest. Jinpinga closed her lips lightly, knew that she could not get entangled with those ferocious animals. Her right feet stretched a little down onto a tiger-head leopard body beast's back and leapt up entirely into the air, flying upwards. Initially Jinpinga did not want fly above the forest top, as firstly she would be revealing her objective, and it seemed like the miasma also extended up to the forest top. Secondly, even more important was, after leaving the forest, to continue stalking the evil shaman. It would be even harder. However, at that moment, she could not care more. Her body flying straight up, although the beasts on the ground were savage, but it looked like not one could fly. Numerous beasts congregated below, roaring, extremely terrifying and horrible. Just when Jinpinga was about to reach the top of the trees, suddenly a strange sound was heard. The black trees, which were densely crowded together, suddenly seemed to come alive altogether. The black shadows flickered and numerous black figures pounced down from above. Thick bloody smell wafted out, most likely those were also toxic. Jinpinga, although was shocked but was calm, her body paused in the mid-air. Purple light flashed, a purple halo immediately appeared above her head. The next moment those dark figures struck down from the air. Once they touched the purple light, crackling sounds erupted unceasingly. Instantly several dark figures disintegrated and scattered, flying. Looking at it from afar, it was those black tree branches, but in the air, black fluid splattering also carried an extremely bloody odor. Although Jinpinga managed to block the trees, but her body was still being beaten down. The innumerable strange beasts on the ground turned excited, each howled and roared. A few even excitedly jumped up, leaping towards her body. Jinpinga's face was pale. She brandished the sword in succession, The purple light surged and immediately shifted down from her head to below her body. Before her body landed, hair-raising sounds of tut-tut were already made incessantly. Within the purple light circumference, several beasts' bodies broke apart with a blast, blood spattered, and even Jinpinger's clothes was also dyed a big patch of red. But the smell of blood aroused the strange beasts surrounding her. Immediately several other strange beasts again pounced over. Sweat began to form on Jinpinger's forehead. Without any hesitation, the purple sword waved and blocked a group of beasts. Exerting strength, her body flew up. Right now, Jinpinger was in an extremely dangerous situation. Below her, innumerable savage beasts pursuing, above her limitless bizarre trees obstructing. She could neither go up or down and could only fly with all her might in between the forest. In the black forest, by now howls and roars of the strange beasts reverberated far and near. The black wind whistled, a scene of hell on earth. Dodging the sharp claws of the beast which had leapt into the air, Jinpinger with one slash chopped across the middle of a black tree what had obstructed the path ahead, flying across it. And what revealed ahead was even more strange beasts and boundless demon-like black trees. Escaping ahead while fighting like that, not knowing how much time had passed, just when Jinpinger was reaching her limit, suddenly in the stretch of darkness ahead, a trace of light was seen. Jinpinger was exalted, her spirits boosted greatly. The purple light sword exploded with light and struck directly onto the head of an enormous grey wolf which had pounced up from the ground, her body flying ahead with all her might. The shadows danced, like demons crying, numerous black trees pressed down from above. Jinpinger was sheltered by the purple light, killing beasts upon sight and chopping trees upon sight. Blood and flesh splattered everywhere, ghosts wailed and wolves howled. She in this sinister, unfathomable black forest, forced out a path by killing. Behind her, remnants of trees, animals' corpses, blood and black fluid splattered and sprayed. When she dashed out from that forest, this lovely mesmerizing woman was covered from head to toe in blood, like a blood human, an unspeakable horror. But when she took a clearer look at her surroundings, while panting heavily, her countenance changed. Where she was now was actually on a cliff, just that there was a huge rock stone exposed outside the black forest. Under the rock, clouds drifted. When the light from the horizon shone through, a strange colorful light seemed to shift in it. With one look, Jinpinger knew those colorful clouds contained the most poisonous miasma, an immediate death for one. Right now, the black forest behind her, roars from the innumerable beasts again rang out, just right behind her. Jinpinger clenched her teeth, grabbed the purple light sword tighter. She whipped around but felt a ringing sound in her head, almost unable to stand upright. Even her body wavered a few times. For the past few days, she did not have any rest, and today, facing the innumerable beasts and evil trees, even a man made from iron would also find it strenuous. She got a shock. A thought flashed past her in this flint spark moment. Don't tell me I have to die here. Regret secretly started to form. She should not have discovered the clandestine relationship between the evil shaman and Shangguan Ce and took the risk to come in. However, in the next moment, she suddenly realized, those beasts were still howling and roaring. Even standing at where she was, indistinctly she could see the beasts in the dark forest leaping around heavily, extremely enraged, but for some reason, not one walked out from the black forest. Maybe, they originally did not belong to this world and so could only live in that eerie forest. This realization made Jinpinger finally heave a sigh of relief, and under the light, those black demonic forests seemed to be frozen and did not make any attack movements towards her anymore. Standing on the rock, she could feel the mountain breeze behind her carrying an indistinct foul odor from the cliff. Jinpinger's body softened and sat precariously down. The wind fluttered her clothes. She then discovered her body was covered in dirty blood. In spite of all of these, she was still a girl, and this discovery made her felt disgusted. She quickly bent her head down and started to tidy up. Suddenly, in the black forest, a deafening rumble boomed out, immediately suppressing the innumerable beasts' cries. Before Jinpinger could look up, a sheet of huge shadow leapt out swiftly from the forest and in her direction. Jinpinger only felt the entire sky had abruptly darkened and shrouded in that shadow, cried out in alarm and subconsciously used the purple light sword to block above her head. The purple light sword had only just started to light up when the shadow had already arrived. A wave of huge strength hit her, flying out, her body in the air, and it could be seen that she had already thrown up blood. Her body flipped and turned in the air. After a few times, she had already flew over the rock under her feet. Going down, the mountain breeze whistled, and the next moment, her figure could not be seen anymore. A deep low roar, that shadow landed on the ground. It was that ferocious dragon beside the evil shaman. It stretched its predator's mouth wide open, a fierce glare sweeping all around. Those strange beasts in the forest seemed terrified of this dragon. By now there was no other movements, all actually had quietly fled. The black figure wavered. The evil shaman in black unhurriedly drifted out from the forest, passing by the dragon, and came to the cliff. The humongous dragon body unhurriedly followed behind him. The evil shaman leaned forward and glanced down the cliff. he saw only indistinct ripples within the colorful clouds. Evidently something had dropped down. He turned and nodded slightly, gently patted the ferocious dragon's body. The dragon quietly rumbled. The evil shaman sneered. Without turning his head, he drifted into the forest. The dragon was about to follow when suddenly it stopped, glanced towards the cliff, but there was only stillness. Nothing had happened. The dragon's fierce eyes shining, stopped for a while and eventually turned and ran towards the direction of its master. Suo suo, sounds were heard from the forest and then gradually lowering until it disappeared. The mountain breeze blew, rolling up the fine dust on the ground, covering the blood stains, as if nothing had ever happened. After a very long time, suddenly a quiet sound, purple light flashed from the side of the cliff. A human figure flipped over from below the rock. It was Jinpinga. Once she landed, she immediately breathed heavily. On her fair snow-white jade-like face, bloodstains beside her mouth. Clearly her injuries were not light. Beside her right hand, the purple light slowly withdrew and returned into her sleeve. And her eyes, already towards her left hand, for some reason, there was an additional unusually shaped knife. The back of the knife was serrated, its design primitive and crude, the thick short knife body suffused with the forest cold light. Clearly she could see two words engraved on it: kill the living. Jinpinga slowly raised her head, glanced at the direction where the evil shaman and the dragon had left. In the cold black forest, there was only stillness. Staring deeply for a long while, as if she was contemplating something, after half a day, her eyes again returned to that strange knife on her hand. Her eyes seemed to have a strange glint. The mountain breeze blew past, indistinctly heard her muttering to herself, was it kill the living monk? 7 Mile Cave, Miao Tribe Altar. A new day, even the sunlight shining onto the altar platform seemed to give off a completely brand new smell. Ghost Li and Xiaobai stood on the platform outside the altar located halfway up in the mountain, looking down at the land at the foot of the mountain which had been devastated by battle and fire. Destroyed buildings and ruins could be seen everywhere, the Miao people walking in and out, looking at it from the vantage point up above. They resembled ants working hard for their homes. Xiaobai sighed, turned and looked at Ghost Li. You better think twice, the evil monster in the 10,000 Great Mountains is not that easy to deal with. Ghost Li's countenance without changing, spoke, I am not even afraid of death, what else is there to fear? Xiaobai shrugged her shoulders, gave a slight wry smile and shook her head. Just at this moment, a sound of she was heard. Both of them turned and it was Xiao Hui who was running over. However, there was something strange with its gait. The next moment, both of their eyes at the same time unexpectedly came to the monkey's hands. Each was carrying a big bag, and it was the bag that the Miaos had used to store their liquor. Ghost Li stunned for a while, turned slowly to Xiaobai. Xiaobai laughed and said, don't look at me, I don't know about this. Xiao Hui very quickly came near, looking at its expression. It was greatly different from its master and Xiaobai's heavy moods. It was clearly very excited and could not stop grinning. The faint wine fragrance wafted out from the two big bags in its hands. The two bags looked bulging, seemed like both were filled up to the brim, very much different from the leftover small bags from the liquor contest a few days ago. The previous day, while Ghost Li, Xiaobai, and the great shaman were discussing the details, the monkey Xiao Hui was really bored in the dark altar. The monkey's nature was active. How could it bear it and so quietly slipped out? At that time Ghost Li's heart was heavy. Surprised and delighted emotions ran through him, and so did not sense Xiao Hui's leaving. Xiao Hui for some reason recalled the wonderful wine it had drank previously and had a strong urge to drink, so it slipped down the mountain to the 7-mile cave. After the devastating battle, the Miao's homes were destroyed and the people, while hard at work, did not pay attention to Xiao Hui, who after all looked just to be a grey-furred monkey. After a few searches, the monkey found 2 big bags of unopened strong liquor in the rubbles. Xiao Hui hid the 2 bags of wine somewhere secret for the night, and early this morning, when they were about to set off, the monkey then ran and dragged these 2 bags out. Clearly it planned to enjoy them along the journey. Just that when it saw its master and Xiaobai facial expressions, Xiao Hui felt uncertain. Its monkey eyes opened wide and looked at these 2 people. After a while, Xiaobai covered her mouth and laughed lightly, spoke to Ghost Li. Forget it, you have already promised the Miao on such a big matter. Even if taking 2 of their wine bags, it is also no big deal. Before she finished her words, she herself started to laugh. Ghost Li shook his head, slowly turned and left, leaving Xiao Hui with its big eyes, looking at Xiaobai, then at Ghost Li. Its hand placed a bag down and scratched its head, looked bewildered. Deep inside the altar, the Miao tribe leader Tu Ma Jiu and the great shaman sat facing each other. There was no one else. Tu Ma Jiu kept quiet for a long while. The great shaman also did not speak. The air carried a stifling atmosphere. Finally, Tu Magu's face changed. It seemed like he could not bear it and said, Great shaman, you are so severely injured. Why must you go with these 2 Central Plains people? The great shaman gently sighed and said, I have just explained to you. Tu Ma Jiu hatefully said, Lee tribe stole our sacred weapon. We must get it back even if it means our lives. Why must we seek outsiders' help? The great shaman shook his head and said, "You are wrong." Tu Marjiu was stunned, said, "What?" The great shaman paused, then quietly said, "If it is really the Lee tribe who stole our sacred weapon, I would not be this worried. I am only afraid." Tu Marjiu, bewildered, said, "Great shaman, what do you mean?" The great shaman said, "Do you still remember the evil beast legend that is passed down to each generation?" Tu Margu's countenance changed greatly, said in shock, "Don't tell me that the legend is true." The great shaman laughed bitterly and said, "It has always been true. At that time when Ling Long Lady sacrificed herself to seal the evil beast in the subdued devil cave, and her last wish is for her people to never allow the 5 evil beast's sacred weapons to return again to the cave. But today, the 5 sacred weapons have all already lost. I'm afraid that it is really the sign that the evil beast is going to be revived." Tu Margu's face showed a mix of emotions. He, as the Miao tribe leader, naturally knew the gravity of this legend, but after a long time, he still could not help it but said, "Great shaman, as such with this situation, all the more you cannot leave. What if, with you around, our tribe people will feel safer?" The great shaman quietly shook his head, said, "This old life of mine probably only have not more than 30 days of time." Tu Margu's body shook greatly. The great shaman sighed and said, "Actually, how would I be willing to leave? Once I leave on this trip, most likely I will die in a foreign land. But now that the 5 tribes are divided and breaking up within themselves, people with talent have completely dwindled down. In the event that my predictions are true, then no one will be able to deal with the danger. That Central Plains young man, although is still young, but he possesses unusual skills, and that black stick with him has a strong murderous aura and evil energy. It is something I have never seen before. But the most important instead is..." He glanced meaningfully at Tu Marjiu, lowered his voice, whispered, "The most important thing is that the object which is said to contain thousands of fire essences, Inferno Mirror, is with him." Tu Marjiu was shocked, said, "What, isn't that object at Fenxiong?" The great shaman signaled with his eyes. Tu Marjiu understood and stopped his sentence, but the shock in his eyes never reduced. The great shaman unhurriedly said, "That day when I first met him, the dog deity statue behind me showed unusual signs, the holy fire also displayed warnings, and the 2 evil beast sacred weapons, Black Staff and Jade Bone, were also agitated. If it was not the supreme object, Inferno Mirror, that repressed the evil beast, then there was no others. As for how did Fenxiong Valley lose this holy object, that I do not know." Adds by Pub Future. Tu Marjiu did not speak. The great shaman paused for a while and continued, "And then later on in my speech, I deliberately mentioned the history of the Inferno Mirror. Both were as expected shocked, especially when 8 Savage Inferno formation was mentioned. Both of their expressions changed greatly. I guessed that they must have intricate relationship with this magical weapon and formation." Tu Marjiu heaved a long sigh. Evidently those words were definitely not what he had expected. The great shaman faintly said, "You too know. The legend that is passed on for generations in our Miao tribe, only the Inferno Mirror and 8 Savage Inferno formation can repress the evil beast. Now let's not say that the Inferno Mirror is not with us. Even if we were to snatch it from the young man, I'm afraid nobody can wield it, and that unfathomable enigmatic 8 Savage Inferno formation, even less so. So, under such circumstances, that young man is really our southern border people's only hope. Even if I were to die in a foreign land, I must go with him. I only hope before I die, I can save his friend's life, hoping that with this small amount of gratitude, he would help our Miao tribe." Tu Margu's lips quivered, the deep wrinkles on his aged face, without realizing, tears trickled down. He faced the great shaman, slowly bent his body down, his head pressed onto the cold floor. The great shaman smiled, his expression also looked melancholy, said, "After I am gone, all of you do not have to worry for me. If that young man is sincere, I guess he will send my body back home. The affairs here will all have to depend on you." Tu Marjiu did not raise his head, his voice low and slightly hoarse, said, "Great shaman, please do not worry." The great shaman faintly said, "This trip of mine, the most only amounts to a death and don't really mean anything. But you in the southern border, the forthcoming days would be turbulent. The other 4 tribes do not know the height of heavens or the depth of the earth. After watching our Miao tribe fall from power, most likely they would take advantage of the situation, and in the 10,000s great mountains, the evil beast could revive at any time. Great calamities are imminent. You shoulder great responsibilities. You yourself must also take care." Tu Marjiu clenched his teeth, acknowledged. The great shaman slowly stood up, looked around and suddenly said, "If the situation really becomes desperate, although the 7-mile cave is where our Miao generations reside, but it is not that we cannot abandon it. As long as our people are around, there is hope in the future." Tu Margu's face paled a few degrees, slowly said, "Yes. The great shaman heaved a long sigh and hurriedly walked out. When that stooped figure, assisted by two Marji, following Ghost Li and Xiao Bai, walked down from the mountain, not many noticed. But following the sounds of footsteps, the great shaman figure, which had not appeared in the streets of 7 Mile Cave for unknown number of years, finally caught the Meows people attention. Following a sound of delightful exclamation, more and more Meow people stopped what they were doing and gathered over. The great shaman, smiling, waving continuously to the surrounding Meows, but he never stopped, walked straight to the exit of the 7 Mile Cave. Finally, the Meows slowly sensed something was not right. Within the crowd, some started to shout it loudly in Meow language. Ghost Li and Xiao Bai although did not understand, but presumably they knew what they were shouting. The great shaman's face looked melancholy. On the face that showed the vicissitudes of life, his smile gradually disappeared and replacing it was clearly sorrow. Just that he still remained silent. Just only waving. Slowly walking further. Tu Marji also stopped his footsteps, standing in front of the people, silently watching that hunched figure. By now the cries of alarm and sobbings from the crowd had already reached an intensity. Many were shocked and confused, and many more had already started to kneel in the direction where that elder was gradually heading. Ghost Li, who was walking behind the great shaman, silently glanced towards the elder and realized that on the aged elder's face, tears were already streaming down. Finally, they reached the pass leading out of the mountain valley. The cries behind them had already resounded throughout the entire valley. The elder's body started to tremble. Suddenly, he turned around abruptly, once again, gazed upon this land, this valley, this stretch of sky. The Meows at a distance cried out in surprise. Many exultingly jumped up from the ground. Then, the next moment, the great shaman closed his eyes tightly, as if he wanted to imprint everything that was on this land into his heart. His eyebrows knitted tightly and once again, turned back. The valley suddenly turned silent. Numerous eyes seemed to be shouting silently behind. The great shaman's face twitched slightly. Slowly he stepped forward, disappeared into the tunnel. In the 7 Mile Cave, silence descended. After a very long while, someone made the first cry, and the next moment, weeping sounds of grief resounded in the entire valley. 10,000 great mountains. Traversing the Black Forest and again crossing the 7 treacherous mountain ranges, there was a lofty mountain that was shrouded perpetually in black gas and with yin-cold wind whistling throughout. And in this barren, stripped-clean mountain without a single tree and grass, there was a big cave. The entrance had a height of 3 jongs, width of 5, in-cold winds constantly whistling out from it, mixed with sharp strange sounds, as if there was a furious spirit howling incessantly. In the center of the cave entrance, a statue stood upright, like the size of a real human. It looked to be a beautiful lady, facing into the subdued devil cave, silently standing. The unceasing whistling yin-cold wind constantly blowing onto the statue, emitting deep sounds, like in a storm, that fragile wooden plank shielding against the wind and rain. Just that, she would never retreat. A black-attired evil shaman right now was standing before this statue, quietly staring. That ferocious dragon beside him seemed to be especially fearful of this statue, subconsciously stood at a distance, sneaked one glance around, called out once, stretched its feet and ran up towards the lofty mountain and in a short while, disappeared into the black air. The bone-chilling yin wind ruffled the evil shaman's black clothes. In this desolate scenery, this person also gradually appeared to be an illusion, carrying a trace of surreal. He gazed on like that for a very, very long time, until even Jinping also started to suspect if this person in black had also turned into a statue. With luck escaping from that black forest and at the same time unexpectedly discovering a deeply embedded kill-the-living knife in the cliff under that enormous rock, made Jinping surmised that the great general kill-the-living monk of Ghost King sect actually made it here before her. But even though the kill-the-living knife was here, kill-the-living monk was not seen, weapon without its owner, the danger could be deduced easily. Most likely kill-the-living monk had met with a mishap. In the 10,000 great mountains, it was really great danger in every step. However, even after Jinping deliberated over it, she still continued to stalk the evil shaman. She knew that the evil shaman possessed unusual skills and so along the way was even more careful. Not once did she dare to be careless and never went near that black-clothed monster and that dragon. In addition, the evil shaman most probably assumed the stalker who was pursuing him had already died in the Black Forest and so did not detect Jinping behind him, unlike that Jinping followed him to this entrance of the subdued devil cave. Right now Jinping crouched behind one of the small hill, watching that black figure from a distance. She could not help but start to wonder if this black-clothed person was planning to stand before this female statue forever. Ever since after they arrived at the subdued devil cave until now, the evil shaman had been staring at that female statue and unmoving for more than 8 hours. Just when Jinping was about to close her eyes and sleep due to boredom, the evil shaman's figure finally moved. Jin Pinga immediately became alert and quickly watched carefully. That evil shaman seemed, after a long period of contemplation, or maybe struggle, finally made up his mind. Facing that female statue, he quietly bent and respectfully bowed. From afar, Jin Pinga watched that shaman. While facing the statue, he seemed to mutter something, but as the distance was too great, she could not hear a word, following which, the shaman unhurriedly turned and drifted into the cave. Jin Pinga frowned tightly. The bewilderment in her heart grew even bigger. That ancient cave obviously contained some important secret, and very likely this was the location where the mysterious figure was whom was mentioned in the conversation between Shangguan Ce and the evil shaman. But in this deserted place, barren hill, wild water, why would there be a female statue here and erected just right in the center of this stone cave entrance? And looking at how that evil shaman behaved towards the statue, clearly he had close relations with it and most likely an obscured past. Just when Jin Pinga watched as the evil shaman was about to disappear into the cave, she decided to sneak over and take a good look at that statue when suddenly the evil shaman stopped. Jin Pinga was shocked. She thought her cover was exposed in her haste and regretted immediately. While she was panicking, she discovered that the evil shaman did not even turn his head over at her direction and did not seem to have detected her. She then felt relieved and quickly concealed herself, peeped out again and looked towards the cave entrance. What she saw made her almost could not believe her eyes. In front of the female statue, in the subdued devil cave entrance, a mass of white air suddenly appeared, contrasting greatly against the black air and the yin-cold wind. The evil shaman also stopped, quietly watching the mass of white air. The white air grew bigger and formed into a human figure. Looking from Jin Pinga's direction, it was a tall, broad man, his right hand holding a gigantic sword, his left hand holding a big shield. His body was made up completely of the white air, wavering in the yin-cold wind, but his body movements as well as his facial expression were clearly discernible. Jin Pinga was stunned beyond words. After a long pause, she drew a breath of cold air and mumbled to herself, "What a good apparition." She after all came from the evil sect and knew a few things about ghosts and demons, passed down since ancient times. Humans give birth, age and die, only spirits remained. When a human dies, the spirit leaves the body, to reincarnate, life after life, endless cycle. And in the world, avenging spirits existed, with greed, anger, infatuation, 3 poisonous causes, with fear, vice, afraid, phobia causes, lingering in the world, holding on to their previous lives, unwilling to reincarnate, known as spirits. When Ghost Li was still Qing Yun sect junior disciple Zhong Xiaofan, together with Lu Xueqi dropped into Kongsang Mountain Thousand Bats ancient caves forsaken abyss in that heartless seashore, they encountered numerous spirits. However, those spirits were mortal spirits and were killed by Blood Forger Hall, unable to reincarnate. Normal people encountering them expectedly would be killed, but to the cultivated people, those were not powerful Evalders. So at that time, although Zhong Xiaofan and Lu Xueqi's skills were still undeveloped, therefore they were able to sustain for some time. The spirit that Jin Pinga saw was not those ordinary apparitions, but was the legendary rare, fierce spirit. This type of spirit was most likely cultivated highly skilled people when they were alive, and after they were dead, because of some deep indignation or foolish thoughts, actually gave up reincarnation and rather stay guard over certain objects, became a desolate wild ghost, drifting in this young world. This type of fierce spirit, their skills were already high, and including otherworldly powers they possessed after death, were even more ferocious. Ordinary cultivators were not their match at all, and it could be said to be 1 in 1,000 vicious apparition. Just that cultivators usually view reincarnation more seriously than common people, and few would relinquish it, hence the reason for the rarity of fierce spirits. This time Jin Pinga unexpectedly saw one. She was indeed really shocked. However, looking over there, that evil shaman seemed not to be shocked. Facing this fierce spirit blocking his path, he only unhurriedly looked up. The fierce spirit's body was tall and broad, almost blocking the entire entrance. The evil shaman, facing this spirit, which resembled a war deity, suddenly sighed. "You are finally willing to come out and see me," he faintly said. The fierce spirit coldly watched him, his white hair and the black shaman's black clothes, like 2 extremities that could never reconcile. "You, this traitor who has forsaken lady, what right do you have that you dare say those words?" The evil shaman seemed to tremble. The one who was always so enigmatic actually seemed to be in pain over this one sentence. He looked at that furious face, after a long time, still remained silent, slowly lowered his head. This video will end here. Thank you for watching.